We often confuse the spark with the fire. We mistake the desire to act for the action itself. This initial burst of energy has a name: motivation. It feels powerful. It feels intoxicating. But here lies the problem. Motivation is, by its very nature, ephemeral. It is a fair-weather friend. It abandons you when the storm comes. It vanishes when the road gets steep. So, if the spark dies, what keeps the engine running? That is discipline. Let us analyze motivation through a psychological lens. It is an emotional state, not a character trait. Because it relies on emotion, it is capricious. It fluctuates wildly depending on your mood, your sleep, or even the weather. Amateurs wait for this feeling to arrive before they work. They treat motivation as a prerequisite for action. This is a fatal error. Because the feeling of wanting to do it rarely aligns with the moment you need to do it. In advanced psychology, we call this the hedonic trap. We seek the pleasure of the result without the pain of the process. Discipline, on the other hand, is not a feeling. It is a system. It is the ability to give up immediate pleasure for long-term gain. It requires fortitude. The mental strength to act regardless of your emotional state. Discipline cuts through the noise of your excuses. While motivation screams, "I don't feel like it," discipline whispers, "It doesn't matter what you feel." True discipline creates a separation between the self and the impulse. It allows you to observe your laziness, acknowledge it, and then proceed anyway. It is the meticulous cultivation of habit. It is boring. It is mundane. But it is the only path to transcendence. There is a pervasive myth that we must feel inspired to act. This is an erroneous assumption. In reality, the causality is reversed. Action does not follow motivation, motivation is a subsequent byproduct of action. You must force the first step into the void. Once you initiate the movement, the brain releases dopamine, which then acts as fuel for further action. We call this the action-motivation loop. You do not wait for the spark, you create it through the friction of your own effort. Physics teaches us about inertia. An object at rest tends to stay at rest. But an object in motion tends to stay in motion. The hardest part of discipline is overcoming the static friction of the beginning. The initial resistance is disproportionately high. However, once momentum is acquired, the energy required to sustain the activity drops significantly. This is why discipline becomes easier over time. It transforms from a daily battle into an automaticity. It becomes your new default state. When discipline is maintained long enough, you unlock a psychological phenomenon known as flow. In this state, the dissolution of the ego occurs. Time dilates. The difficulty of the task matches your skill level perfectly. Motivation is choppy and loud. Flow is silent and seamless. It is the ultimate reward for the disciplined mind. But you cannot enter flow by waiting for it. You must construct the vessel of discipline first, so the river of inspiration can fill it. The most insidious enemy of discipline is the delay of gratification. We live in an era of instantaneity. But true progress is often imperceptible to the naked eye. It follows the law of the compound effect. Changes that seem infinitesimal in the moment will accumulate exponentially over time. If you improve by just 1% every day, you do not merely add to your skills, you multiply them. This is the arithmetic of greatness. Ultimately, discipline is not about what you achieve, it is about who you become. It precipitates an ontological shift. Motivation is, I want to exercise. Discipline is, I am an athlete. One is a desire, the other is an embodiment. When a behavior becomes part of your identity, the internal resistance vanishes. You no longer need willpower to be yourself. It becomes intrinsic. You stop acting the part. You dissolve the facade. You become the habit. So, stop waiting for the lightning to strike. Stop waiting for the muse to whisper. These are transient ghosts. Be the rock in the chaotic ocean of life. Be steadfast in your pursuits, regardless of the emotional weather. Motivation is a spark that can start a fire. But discipline is the fuel that keeps it burning through the coldest winter. Do not seek the spark. Become the fire.